Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Weinstein, and I'll be presenting my future learning project as part of our Capstone Seminar. When I think of my ideal position in higher ed 5 years from today, I would really like to be working at the system level or within a central office, opposed to within an individual institution. An example we're probably all most familiar with is CUNY's central office, which provides assistance and support to the 25 individual CUNY schools. And this is the type of office I'd like to be in. Hopefully within the next 5 years, I'd reach a dean level, and within my scope of work would be career education and industry partnerships, or what's sometimes referred to as career and technical education and workforce partnerships. While learning through this project, there's certainly skills that can be developed under all of our HEA program competencies. For purposes of this slide, I've zeroed in on the two program competencies I have here, but I am emphasizing problem solving and interacting effectively. From my interview, I learned that these are two skill sets that are critical to success working in a central office in a role that I would like to be in. A little bit about the person I interviewed for this project, Angie Kamath. She's the University Dean for Continuing Education and Workforce Development. Angie's been in nonprofit roles, government, and more recently education for approximately the last 20 years. Her current role with CUNY, she's been in for just over 4 years, but she was no stranger to CUNY when she arrived here. Her role working in government was with a city agency who funds a lot of workforce development training programs at various CUNY schools. And in that role, she was able to network and work closely with CUNY leadership in the central office. My interview with Angie focused on the nature of her work, the critical skills and competencies needed to be successful in a role like hers, and a little bit about the process by which she made it into her role. The primary thing we discussed when it comes to the nature of this type of work was the function of connecting people and initiatives across the system. The term initiatives was not something I had originally thought of. And when Angie used that term, it had me thinking more broadly about what this work is. It's not just sharing resources or partnerships or figuring out how to leverage these things across the system most efficiently, but it's really also connecting dots on various initiatives. Another part of her role, which was interesting for me to learn about, being in a central office, working and communicating a lot with external stakeholders. There's misconceptions out there as to what, in this case, the CUNY system is. And her role is really educating the public and various stakeholders to what the system actually is. It's not just community colleges or just senior colleges. So demystifying CUNY was language she used. And, it's really spreading the good word about, the social and economic mobility that CUNY provides for its students and things to that effect. One of the main challenges is that it is a central office and there are 25 individual institutions with their own unique character and personalities. They each have their own mission statements, things they're good at, not so good at. But there are at times conflicting agendas or almost a competition amongst the institutions. So one of the things Angie suggested is important in her role is staying mindful of what CUNY as a system stands for and letting the strategic priorities of the system guide the work. We talked a lot about skills and resource development using data to tell a story, and what Burkhardt refers to as personal qualities. And I'm going to talk more about those on the next slide. In terms of a primary core competency, I kept coming back to communication. In a central office role, there's a lot of selling going on, both internally and externally. and the ability to build rapport, trust, nurture these relationships is critically important. And interpersonal communication skills was something we kept coming back to throughout the interview. In terms of a little bit about the process that was shared with me, there was an element of networking. As I previously mentioned, in Angie's particular case, her role in government helped network her into the role at CUNY Central. But more importantly, she provided advice for me in terms of how important it is to really put in the work on the front line or at the institution level, or on the ground was another phrase she used, uh, in order to really create a foundation for myself that would enable me to be successful in a role like she has in a central office. And I feel comfortable that I've put in some of that work over the last 10 years. So it was nice to have that part of the conversation. So in terms of my plan on how to achieve my goal of working in a central office as a dean within 5 years, um, I've outlined some things here. I've shared with the class I'd like to relocate, and uh, I could be doing more now to be networking, uh, meeting higher ed professionals that are working within the community college district I'm interested in relocating to. Starting to meet people and have conversations with them, learn more about the flagship programs at different institutions, and so on. I could also be attending virtual events that some of these institutions are having, to learn more about what's important to these institutions. One of my key takeaways comes next in terms of resource development. And when we were originally asked to submit our preliminary ideas for our future learning projects, I focused mostly on the need for me to develop program design and program implementation skills. After learning more from Angie, it sounds like there's people around her in her role that have this expertise. And although they're important skills to have, it's similar to kind of how I function now at LaGuardia, where I identify an opportunity and I make the match, and the workforce administrators or those professionals really design and implement the programs. But we talked mostly about resource development, and this wasn't something on my radar. And I haven't done a lot of resource development in my career so far. So another thing as part of my plan, is to leverage my current position and professional network to learn more about resource development and how it comes together at an institution. And this could be people resources, space resources, financial resources. Um, so that for me was a key takeaway as part of the learning on this project. There's also this idea of storytelling. As I said earlier, there's a lot of selling that's going on in this role in a central office, as you're courting new funders and business leaders who are going to hopefully provide opportunities to our students. Um, Using data to make to tell powerful stories about the social and economic mobility that our institutions afford to students, and things like that. That's one example. I'm very comfortable with data, and analyzing data. I've never considered myself a great storyteller. I've never really thought of it before. So kind of brushing up on my storytelling skills is something I can be doing now, in my current role, and working on that. In terms of tips, Angie provided two. One was be true to your values and who you are, and she used that in the context of her experience working at Perscolis, um, and her experience there, and how that uh, inspired her to look for a position within CUNY, because a lot of the Perscolis clients were CUNY non-completers. And without taking too long, I'm getting short on time. There was being true to your values and who you are was a good tip, and that can resonate with each of us in our own way. The other one, the personal advice given to me was that once you're at the system level, it can be easy to lose touch with what's happening at an institution or on the ground. As we talked more about it, though, this idea of staying connected with mission popped into my head, and I thought, to share with the class, as we all have ambitions to be higher education professionals. Resources are scarce. There's no shortage of competing priorities, and we'll always be asked to do more with less. And one of my takeaways was to stay connected with the organization's mission. Uh, Let that be the guiding light for how we approach our work and prioritize our work. So thank you for listening to my Future Learning Project. I look forward to listening and learning more about all of yours as well. Thank you.